Well, welcome to tonight's open house, our information session on the Healthcare Administration program. Thank you for spending a few minutes of your evening to learn a little bit more about the program. So, tonight we're going to be talking about the college, of course, the Healthcare Administration program, and a little bit about online learning. But before we get started with that, just a little bit of housekeeping. If for any reason during the presentation, if you lose your internet connection, just pop back in with the link that was provided to you and you will be able to pick right back up with the presentation. If for some reason I get bumped, I don't leave. I will come back. It has been very rare. I think it's only happened once in a couple of years where I've lost my internet connection, but I was able to get right back in. So there's a little bit about the housekeeping for tonight's information session. All right, well, let's start with some introductions. My name is Chris Gibbons. I am the director for the Healthcare Administration Program and Allied Health Certificates here at Mercy College, so I can answer just about all of your questions that you have with the program. All right, well, let me go ahead and shrink my image down here a little bit, and let's go ahead and get started with tonight's presentation. Now, if you have any questions as we go through the presentation, please don't wait until the end of the presentation. Ask those questions right away. I will be looking at the text chat box, and if I see those questions, it might take me a few moments, but I will get to them and answer those questions. So please don't feel like you have to wait till the end of the presentation. All right, well, let me go ahead and remove my picture altogether here. I promise I'll come back towards the end. But let's talk a little bit about the college itself. I like to divide this presentation in really kind of a top-down perspective. So we're going to start with the college, then we'll talk about the program, and then we'll kind of get into online learning. So kind of get down to that what you're really going to be doing in the classroom. So first, let's talk about Mercy College. Now, some of you may not be familiar with Mercy College. I know we have students from all over the country within our program, and initially they were not necessarily aware of who we are. So I always think it's important for folks to learn a little bit about where they're going to school and a little bit about our heritage. And tonight I see we have folks from all over the country, and actually we have somebody from Dubai in here tonight. So I think they win the record for the furthest away. I think you're probably 12 time zones away, and I think that's the new record for this. So welcome from Dubai. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Mercy College. As you can see here, we are tracing our heritage all the way back to 1918. So quick math. We're 100 years old. We're celebrating our centennial. We are very proud about that. Mercy College started 100 years ago as a nursing school. There was a major flu epidemic that was sweeping the world around that time. Actually, a couple of them happened right around the turn of the century. It was a bad time, but there was a lot of need for nursing care. And we were founded as a nursing school by Catholic nuns to provide that care for people. And often has been the history with healthcare, a lot of that has been driven by the faith-based organizations such as Catholic nuns or monks or whatnot. And that's been going on for a few thousand years. So that's still kind of going on even today. So again, 100 years ago, we started as a nursing school, but we have continued to evolve over the years. We've added so many other healthcare programs, healthcare administration, obviously, radiologic technology, health information technology, paramedic, EMT, polysomnographic technology, just to name a few. And of course, we still have nursing. Now, what's the most important thing for you to take away from that? All of the programs that we have at Mercy College are healthcare oriented. We do not try to be all things to all people. Our cultural DNA for 100 years is healthcare or healthcare education. And we're very proud about that. And that's what we stick to. That's what we do. We don't offer degrees in French. We don't offer degrees in history. We offer degrees and programs in healthcare education, and that is what we do. The other thing, as I mentioned, we started as a school founded by nuns, which means that we are a faith-based school. We are still true to that heritage today. We are a faith-based school based in the Catholic tradition. And we are also a nonprofit school, which I think is important for you to know. Not that there's things necessarily wrong with the for profit schools. They have some great for profit schools out there. But as a nonprofit school, know that all that revenue is put back into the mission of what we do, which is educating students for healthcare careers. So that's kind of nice. We don't have shareholders or stockholders that we have to pay out. So it all goes right back into our mission. Let me talk a little bit more about that faith-based nature of who we are. A lot of students ask me, well, do I have to be Catholic to come here? Absolutely not. We embrace people of all faiths and even those that don't necessarily prescribe to a faith. We embrace all perspectives as long as they're respectful to each other, and we really foster that understanding and respect for all here at Mercy College, and that really makes a big difference on who we are. I think it infuses everything that we do, and we still have, even today, we have nuns that actually work here at the college. That kind of changes, I think, what we do, and everybody likes to say they're caring, but I think we kind of really show it with our students, and we have 100 years of evidence behind that to show, how we support our students. Now, some of other faith-based schools that you may have heard of, Notre Dame is a big one. Of course, you've probably all heard of Notre Dame, Xavier. There's quite a few of these very large universities. Again, we're not nearly as large as Notre Dame University. Right now, we're at about 1,400 students, which I think is kind of like the Goldilocks number. It's, when Goldilocks is not too hot or too cold. I think we're just kind of the right size. We're not a big institution with 14, 15,000, and we're not a small institution with, 3, 400. We're the right size where we can have that critical mass of students where we can bring those very important support services to you, but yet still have that personal touch, that personal connection with students. So I think, again, our size is just perfect for, for what we do. All right, so there's a little bit about our history. Let's talk about something I think is very important. As a consumer, you are a consumer. Some people don't like to think of that, but I think it's great to embrace that. You are a consumer of education. And whether you choose Mercy College or not, it's important for us to understand that. And as a consumer, it is very important for you to look for value in that investment, because education is not cheap. And part of that value equation is something called accreditation. Now, all schools are going to say they're accredited. Guarantee. Everybody's going to say they're accredited. The question is, by whom are they accredited? That is the most important piece. And there are really a couple of flavors of accreditation out there. One is called regionally accredited, and the other one is called nationally accredited. Now, you'd think national sounds better. Actually, national has a really different focus, and their focus is much more on kind of the vocational training, welding, air conditioning, those kind of trades. It's very trade specific, trade focused type of education. We are regionally accredited. So that means that we have an external agency that comes in and looks at us. And they do it all the time. They constantly are looking at us and auditing our quality. So, and that type of accreditation that we have is regionally accredited. Now, I've given some other schools out there that are regionally accredited, names that you would, readily know, such as UCLA, Ohio State, University of Michigan, Harvard, Notre Dame, Florida State, Xavier, University of Cincinnati. All of those schools are going to be regionally accredited. So know that Mercy College has the accreditation that you need. Now, why is it important? Well, one, it is a hallmark of quality. For us to maintain that accreditation is, something that is we want to strive to meet. It really is a guarantee for the consumer that you're getting a quality education there. And we always meet or exceed those regionally accredited standards. Another reason why it's important for you is many tuition reimbursement plans. If you're lucky enough to work for an employer who does offer tuition reimbursement, Many tuition reimbursement will only kick in if you are going to a regionally accredited school. So know that we're going to have you covered on that area as well. And then lastly, most of our students, or I shouldn't say many of our students, go on to get their graduate degrees. They go on to get their master's, which is the next step after a bachelor's degree. And if you're getting a master's degree, it's worth the paper it's printed on. That school is going to want you to have graduated from a regionally accredited school. So know that you're going to have that box checked too. So you got all three checks for you. You know you're going to have quality education, check. You know that you're going to be, if your employer requires it, you're going to have that regional accreditation standard for any tuition reimbursement if they're offered by your employer. And then lastly, if you go on to graduate school, as a lot of students do, at some point, you're going to have that covered as well. All right, so that's what's important about regional accreditation. If you decide to go to another school, which is fine, maybe we're not the fit for you and what you're looking for in a program. Um, that is okay, but do me a favor, make sure that they have the right accreditation for you. And in my opinion, there's only one, and that's regional accreditation. All right, so I'll get off my soapbox there. Just know that we're going to have the right accreditation for you. Let's talk a little bit more about the college and kind of that big picture that we're looking at. As I mentioned, 100 years ago, we were started by nuns that started that school of nursing. That school of nursing was associated with a hospital. And as was the case around 100, 150 years ago, 200 years ago, many hospitals were founded primarily by nursing by nuns who had a nursing education purpose with that. So know that's out there, and that was that initial part of that heritage. That original relationship, going back to that hospital and that nursing program that started 100 years ago, the hospital actually started back in the 1860s. Well, over the past 100 and almost 50 years, has expanded to what is now known as Mercy Health, which is a large network here in the Midwest, still faith based, still nonprofit hospital system. So, as you can see here, we are the seventh largest nonprofit healthcare organization in the United States. We are probably going to be exceeding that pretty soon and becoming an even larger number down the road. So, what does that mean for you? Okay, so Mercy College is a part of this major hospital system. Well, here's what it means for you is that many of your instructors come right from the Mercy Health facilities, the network. We have directors of let's say, for example, your marketing instructor. She is a director of marketing here at Mercy Health. We can pull these content experts right out of our facilities and bring them right into your classroom. So that's kind of unique. A lot of colleges don't have that. And we think it's very important, especially for this type of program, to have that boots on the ground, that real expertise coming into your classroom. So you're going to have that with your instructors. So that's a little bit about that connection there and why it's important for you. All right, now let's talk a little bit about the program itself. Let's get into some of the nitty gritties about what that program is all about. You might hear these terms mentioned a couple of times. You might hear completion degree, you might hear 2+2. What that really means is the way the healthcare administration program is designed. It's designed, we call it as a completion degree, which takes the original body of work that our students have, which is usually an associate's degree, and we build on top of that 2 more years. Now, why would we do that? Well, one, it is the most efficient way to get you your diploma, get your bachelor's, and it's really the right thing to do. We don't want to put you through 4 more years of college. You've already have 2 years of college, so that's one of the requirements for this program. And hopefully you've read some of that in the literature. Is that you have an associate's degree or you have a significant amount of college credit already done. So maybe you started going to get a 4-year degree and you went for a couple of years and you stopped. That's okay. You have a couple of years or thereabout of college credit that will be able to apply towards your degree. And we're going to squeeze every bit of college credit out of your transcripts from any school you've attended at any time. We've had transcripts from the 70s, and we pull transfer credit out of there. As long as they're from regionally accredited schools, we're able to extract that transfer credit. So that's where we kind of look at the 2 plus 2. It refers to basically years. You've done about 2 years of college work, and we're going to build 2 more years. Now, students kind of sometimes wonder, well, can I finish my degree faster? Well, there is no magic formula. A bachelor's degree is traditionally 4 years of work. There's no way to get around that. Yeah, you can double the speed that you're taking it, but then that gets pretty crazy for folks. Even going full time for our students, and I'll talk about that in a moment, is going to be very difficult. So just know that there's no way to magically push you along. The work has to be done, and that's good. I'd always be a little leery of a program that's magically making things happen for you, without work being done. But what we want to do is honor the work that you have already done. So that prior degree that you have, that associate's degree that you have, that body of college coursework that you've already have, we're going to bring that over and then add on top of that. Now, couple finish lines I need to get you across. The first one is 120 credit hours. If you remember going back to school, courses are divided in credit hours. And the national standard for a baccalaureate degree is 120 credit hours. So we got to get you across that finish line. Now, most students come into this program with anywhere from 60 to 70 credit hours, sometimes more. If you change majors before you settle into your original program that you got your first degree, your associate's degree in, or if you went to school for a couple of years and then kind of dropped out, a lot of them do come over with a little bit more than that. But so we're going to take those credits and then, which again are about 60 to 70, and then we're going to build on top of that to get you to the 120. So that's, I guess, the first finish line that I need to get you across. The next one is the body of coursework. It's a healthcare administration degree. You're going to have healthcare administration courses. We've got to get you through those courses. So we're going to add that on top of it. And as a baccalaureate degree, there's other courses that you'll need to take as well, and that will round out the 120 credit hours for you. Our goal is to get you as close to that 120 as possible. Now, again, some students come in with 90 credit hours. They started one degree, maybe they started off in nursing, and then they switched to something else. Sometimes there's overkill, as far as the amount of credit hours they come to us with. It definitely helps for the 120. The 120 is not going to be a concern for those issues, but obviously, you're going to be over the 120 just because we have to get through the coursework required for the curriculum, the actual HCA stuff that you're going to learn. All right, so that's the 120. And then I also just alluded to the professional coursework, the actual classes you need to take in healthcare administration. That's the other finish line. There is a third finish line, it's a little bit more subtle, and that's called upper level coursework. If you kind of remember back in the day, you usually have courses that are like 100, 200, 300, 400. Well, as a baccalaureate student, you're required to have more of that, 3 and 400 level. That's not a problem for our students because as they take the professional curriculum, they're going to meet that. That's never generally an issue for our students. All right, so those are the three finish lines that we need to get you across. Our goal, again, is to get you to that finish line as efficiently as possible. Now, let's talk about what you're going to learn in the program. Now, this slide is incredibly busy. A lot of things going on here, but here's what I want you to look at. Let's just randomly grab some. All right, I'm going to grab HCA 312, Human Resource Management in Healthcare Organizations. Let me grab another one, HCA 330, a class that I teach, Principles of Accounting in Healthcare. Let's grab HCA 419, reimbursement, insurance, and managed care. That's a healthcare class if you don't know. And then let's pick HCA 440, fundamentals of population health for healthcare administrators. Look at all of those courses. All of those courses are taught from the healthcare perspective. And quite honestly, when I built this curriculum, I could not find another program in the country where the professional curriculum, its core, was completely from the perspective of healthcare. For example, other programs, they usually all have an accounting and finance class, but it might be just a general accounting and a general finance class. They might have a law class, but it might be general business law. That's okay. I mean, some of those principles are fine and they do translate into healthcare, but there is a significant difference, though, in those content areas that we truly believe warrants a standalone class focusing in on that area. I will say like healthcare finance. Yes, there are some principles that are tried and true, whether you're with, Amazon, Walmart, but there are some things that are very unique to healthcare, and we want you to know those things. As a future leader, as a future manager in healthcare, we think it's absolutely essential. So that's kind of the thing we think is, very, very important when you look at this curriculum. It is all taught from the healthcare perspective because that's why you're here. You want not a generalized business degree with a little bit of healthcare. You're here for a healthcare administration degree. And I think we've got all the bases covered for you. Another thing before we move off this slide is look at the areas that you're in. It, when the curriculum was designed, we looked at all of the fundamental building blocks that a manager leader is going to need in healthcare. This approach allows students the most leverage for any opportunity that may come open to them. Now, some programs you could have a focused approach. I'm a little leery about the focused approach. It's great on paper, but let's say an opportunity that you weren't initially expecting comes open. We want you to have some background in that to be able to, move your career in that direction if you wish. So this one really is kind of a diversification in all different areas. You've got the population health and the finance and the law and the human resources. You've got all of these various things, the information systems in there. So if opportunities in any one of those areas come up, you can hopefully address those intelligently and be able to, pursue avenues in those areas. So it's kind of not having all your eggs in one educational basket, if you will. So that's another thing to remember when you look at this curriculum. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the hardest question to answer that students have is, what am I going to do with this degree? That that is the most difficult one out of that's throughout whenever I talk to students about this program. And here is why. Many of you come from an associate's degree background. Earlier, I asked the group where were your were you working in healthcare, and all of you were working in healthcare, and all of you had associate's degrees. Associate's degrees, by their nature, by their design, are typically focused, vocational, job-oriented, very specific job-oriented degrees. That's the way they were designed in the 60s. They were designed to do that mission, and they do it fantastic. They're fantastic. They have laser focus, okay? So I went through X-ray school, okay? And when I was done, I knew exactly what I was going to be doing and where I was going to be going, okay? You knew you were going to be where you're working, all of that. Very laser focus. And a lot of our students still have that perception of that laser focus of what this particular a degree should produce. And that's one of the things we struggle with students. We want them to know, take the blinders off. This is now, you have a much larger horizon to really I guess, sell yourself at, once you've completed this degree. And you really need to have, take those blinders off because you may miss wonderful opportunities that you never expected. I never thought I would have an administration job within healthcare education. Never thought that wasn't the goal for me. The goal was to be an MRI, technologist and work with those big magnets and all of that stuff. But it took a very interesting and different direction. Um, but I didn't have those blinders on. I was always looking for different opportunities that would fit my skill set and something that I would enjoy as well. So that's what this degree will do. And we're going to work with you. We want you to take those blinders off and really look at all the opportunities that are out there. Now, you may have a goal in mind, which is great. You got to have that goal. You got to have that aspirational goal that points you in the right direction, that keeps you moving towards that direction, and definitely have that. It's really essential to, I think, for motivation and moving people forward. And by having that goal, it's funny. Sometimes the goal itself doesn't materialize as you thought it would. Other things materialize that you would never expect. Kind of what I've been talking about over the past couple of minutes. So um, it's okay that you're thinking that, I'm going to be the manager of the imaging department. I'm going to be a director of patient services. That's what I want to be. That's great. But again, keep your eyes open to the other opportunities. All right, so on this slide, we have a few areas. Just I try to capture these as students talk to me, where students have had jobs. Healthcare clinics, obviously hospitals, but it's not always hospital system oriented. Um, it's not always working necessarily in the hospital facility. It might be in their support facilities. You might be working in a physician's practice, state or federal agency. Just talked to a student a few weeks ago. She was working for a county health agency, biotech, medical devices, skilled nursing facilities. You know, really anywhere within the landscape of healthcare. And healthcare is the second largest employer outside the US government. So it's a very, very large landscape that you have available to you. So keep that in mind. All right. So then the next question that I get is, so then, you know, so what specifically will I be doing? Well, each one of those areas that we just looked at have these subcategories: finance, marketing, human resources, sales, patient care services, administration. Compliance. That's another one I don't have on here. Compliance. There's all these subcategories within those major industry categories. So when you add it all up, I mean, really, the combinations are in the hundreds, if not thousands, of the different combinations where your degree will be relevant and give you opportunities in. For some reason, human resources has been hot for the past couple of cohorts for students, past couple of semesters. For some reason, some students, a good chunk, have been very interested in moving into human resources. Um, so you never know, kind of, where those personal interests lie. As you go through the program, you're going to be exposed to courses, and some you're going to like, and some you're going to be like, yeah, wasn't my cup of tea. That might help you too, and understand maybe where your home in healthcare might be. Some of our students know exactly where they're going to be. Some of them are already in management roles, and they're getting their bachelor's degree because they're going to move up to higher leadership roles. They kind of know the lay of the land as well. Um, so but for some students who are still trying to figure out where maybe in healthcare they want to position themselves, that coursework will help. Maybe you really, I'll say, maybe you really love finance, or maybe you don't. That's one of the classes I teach. It seems to be about a split crowd that goes through that class, and all of them, knock on wood, they appreciate the class. They understand it's important, for management, for leadership, for what they need to do in healthcare. Some some really are gifted and really embrace it. And some are like, I know I need to know this and it's good and I know it, but not my cup of tea. And that's okay too, because they may gravitate towards other things like the human resources side, or maybe some of our, reimbursement sides. So there's all kinds of facets within there that you can kind of find your niche, and hopefully something that you find rewarding as well. or that enhance your current career path that you want to know more in. Maybe you're that manager and you want to know more about finance and budgeting. That's where some of the curriculum pieces will help you as well. So there you go. Basically, the world is your oyster in a way with the degree. As long as that oyster, there's the one. What's the one limiting factor? You know, there is a limiting factor, and that limiting factor is this is a healthcare administration degree. If you are going to go to work in let's say property and casualty insurance, this is not going to help you. Yeah, you might have some insurance basics, you'll know that, but that's not healthcare insurance. That's a completely different type of insurance. So if it's not a generalized business degree. For some folks going in that route, a generalized business degree uh, might be a better approach. But the students that come here, 99% of them either already work in healthcare, have worked in healthcare. They know this is their realm. This is what they where they want to be and where they're going to have their career. Many of them are already they're already, let's say they're kind of that frontline healthcare provider. Maybe they're respiratory therapist or nuclear medicine or imaging like myself, and they know they want to take the next step up. They kind of know that direction and what that step up might mean for them. All right, so there's a little bit about that. Um, just before I get off this slide, I'm kind of talking. There's usually questions about, well, what kind of students are in the program. Again, all of you typically are healthcare workers already. The average age is about 30, so it's really for those working professionals. That's who it's designed for working professionals in healthcare. We know that you got a lot of demands on your plate. Now, this next slide is I'm going to talk briefly about this. This is our practicum experience. It is optional. If you have or are currently employed in healthcare, you do not need this. We do have a small percentage of students who enter the program who do not have any healthcare experience. We want them to get out there and basically, practicum is kind of a fancy word for internship. And not quite internship, but most people know what an internship is, so I usually use that word. And they're able to go out for a semester and maybe work in human resources. Maybe they'll work in logistics. They might work in healthcare IT for that semester and get that experience, get that foot in the door, kind of understand a little bit more about that, hopefully make connections. And many students will often make great connections and even get job offers through the practicum experience. Again, that's only required if you don't have any healthcare experience. All of you here tonight have healthcare experience. Now, here's the interesting thing. More people take this practicum class. It's an actual class that happens right around their final semester in the program. More people take the practicum who don't need it than need it. I never expected that, quite frankly, when I designed this part of it. What we have found is that students who are working in healthcare they want to try something new and fresh and different. Again, I'll go back to the human resources. I had a student who was actually in imaging, and he wanted to try human resources and get something completely different from what he was doing with the medical imaging aspect of his career, and ended up working, a couple semesters in human resources, and actually graduates in the end of this week. So very, very exciting news for him. So you can take this practicum as an optional component if you wish. Totally up to you. As long as if you don't have that 1 year experience, then it is mandatory and required, and really does help with your career. But I want to let you know that it is out there as an optional component should you want to do that. All right, program designed around real life. So I wouldn't necessarily have my baby next to me with the laptop like that. He'd probably fall over. Well, he's a little bit older. My kids are 9 and 12 now, so they tend not to fall over as much as when they were babies. But all of our students, as I mentioned before, they're working healthcare professionals. They're very busy. Most of them have families or family obligations or significant others that they have, that kind of responsibility to, and they're working full time. And we're stretching across 4 time zones. And right now we stretch across 4 time zones, maybe more. Um, and those students are working for second and third shifts in many cases. So they're all over the place and they're extraordinarily busy and they're trying to go back to school on top of it. So again, this program is really designed for folks that working healthcare professional. And here's how we do it. Well, first, we offer it online, obviously. That way, you have some control over the when you're able to basically do your work and attend classes. Online learning comes in a couple of different flavors. One is called synchronous, and that's what we're doing right now. You had to sign onto the computer at a very specific time and sit here and hear me talk for about 45 minutes. Then there's another type of online learning, and that's called asynchronous, where you don't have to sign on at a particular time to hear to do your coursework or to hear lectures or to turn in assignments. Our program is designed on an asynchronous basis. So this live event that you're having today, this does not happen within the program. You might have an optional uh, event like this within a program. Sometimes I'll do a midterm review and I'll do it like this, but I'll record it for students. Um, and I'll have students even email me questions and I'll turn on the webinar and no one will show, but I'll have all these questions they've emailed me. I'll answer the questions and then I'll provide that recorded link back out. But it's never required because again, we're dealing with 4 time zones and 3 different shifts and very, very busy people. So online learning allows you to open that laptop, whether it's at 3 a.m. after your shift, or whether it's after you put the baby to bed, or whether it's noon, or whatever works for you. You're able to control how you progress a little bit through that learning. Now, obviously, you have due dates. Things will be due at particular times as you go through a course. How you get to those due dates, though, that'll be up to you. So if a due date's on a Sunday and your day off is Tuesday and Wednesday, you might submit all of your work. The bulk of your work might be submitted on a Wednesday. So this really allows you to take those chunks of time in your very busy schedule, and then kind of apply them to your college coursework. And that's the only, you're so busy. That's the only way it works. That's really the magic, really the power of online learning is allows folks like you to do that. So that's coming back to campus for traditional classes. It's just not going to happen for most of us. Might be a wonderful way to do it, but you gotta it doesn't work. You gotta go to work. You gotta pay the bills, if you will. So online learning helps you progress on with that. Let's talk a little bit about the type of the way the courses are structured that helps our students. A semester is typically 16 weeks long. Here's what we do. We take that semester and we put it into 2 different sections. I'll call it Part A and Part B. We have classes that are 8 weeks long. So in the first 8 weeks, you're going to take a class. And then after the 8 weeks, you're done with it. Second 8 week starts, that Part B of the semester, you're going to take another class. I'm not going to say forget the first one that you just finished, but you can kind of forget about it. And then you can move on to that second class. What that does for students, and that's a part-time, and within a part-time plan, that allows students to still take 6 credit hours, which is a lot actually. It's exactly half of full-time status, which is 12. But that allows them, by only taking one course at a time, you're only focusing on one midterm, one project, one paper, whatever it is, you're only focusing in on that particular subject for that 8 weeks. That makes it much more manageable. Now, again, I've always been kind of saying there's like no magic formula. There's no, there's no cheat, if you will. The courses that are in a 8 week format are compressed and accelerated. They do go faster than a traditional full semester course that maybe you took when you went back to school, a few years ago. But it's very doable. Our students get used to it. time management is essential, and that one course at a time makes it very manageable. Not easy, but very manageable. There's another, I guess, misperception out there. Uh, Way back, let's wind the clock back about 10, 12, 13 years ago. There was the perception that online was easy. Then that started to change about 7 years ago, and it's like online is hard. Um, Here's really the answer to this: is online learning is different. It's not easy. It's not hard. It's not overly hard, I should say. It's just different. It's different than that land-based learning that that traditional classroom experience, and it just takes a little bit of tweaking to get used to it. So, for example, you're in a class, you have a question, you can raise your hand, and your instructor can usually, if they want to, get back to you in a minute or seconds. In online learning, it doesn't work that way. So let's say if you have a question, you're going to email your professor, and it may take them a full cycle for them to get back to you. It may take up to 24 hours to get back to you. So you have to train yourself to make sure to be a little bit more proactive in some of your questions and that you may have with assignments, and kind of plan that into that. So that kind of, oh my gosh, I got to do the assignment tonight and I forgot to ask the questions. And yet you may or may not get an answer. I like to use text messaging, and sometimes I can get back to students within a few seconds. But, hey, sometimes I can't because I'm, with my kids or doing something, and I can't, I'm driving or whatever, and I can't get back to you, and I may not be able to get back to you until tomorrow morning. So that's kind of that, you have to learn those pieces on how that works. Um, but I kind of, with everything, there's pluses and minuses. I think with online learning, though, there are so many more pluses than minuses. Um, I get a question too. What makes a successful student in the program? And the biggest, I guess, common denominator for those really successful students is the ability to that kind of forward thinking, that planning a little bit ahead, that time management is kind of cliched but very very true, and there is a little bit of the kind of that self-directedness that they have to them. Now, what's really exciting about this program, and I've dealt with a lot of programs here at Mercy College, and I've developed quite a few of them, and there are different ranges of the types of students that they have. This program, since it already appeals to people who have already completed a degree typically, and are typically already working healthcare professionals, you guys are focused. You know what you want. You're here for a reason. You're not here because you don't know what to do after you graduated from high school, right? We all had, maybe some of us had that. I'll raise my hand on there. A little bit of drifting for that first year, but you're all here for a reason. You know it, and you're very focused and driven. And it's kind of almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, our students come in driven, they finish driven, and it's amazing. So many of them are excellent students, excellent students. So there's the common denominator, and chances are you probably already have that because you're here tonight and you're learning about the program. Now, I asked earlier as we were warming up questions about if you have ever had experience in online learning. And I know a few of you haven't. No worries. No worries. We have an onboarding process where you're going to go through orientation. You're going to learn about your digital campus. You're going to learn how to do assignments. You're going to kind of play around in that digital environment. You're going to learn best practices for online learning before your classes start. Last thing we want you to do is be worrying about the technology and how to click and what to do when your classes are started. All we want you to worry about then is learning the material. That's the most important thing. And I will tell you, we've been doing this for many, 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 many years, and we've got it down. I've had students who've had what I would consider very rudimentary computer knowledge, and we've been able to get them up to speed through that onboarding process, and they're perfectly comfortable when they enter the program, and they're feeling like online pros. So we're going to have you go through that. Now that onboarding process, that orientation process, will happen before you start the program. It's all self-paced. takes students, really depends on, some are, go through it pretty quick, some like to digest it a little bit slower. Typically for the whole onboarding process takes about 6 to 8 hours. Many students divide it up over a period of a couple of weeks. So they take a little bit, a couple hours a week, and before you know it, you're done. Some just sit down and knock it all out in one setting. Totally up to you. But again, don't worry if you're an online newbie, you're going to feel very, very comfortable with that process. So don't worry about that. All right, so that kind of covers some of the questions that we've had here. We've answered a lot. Again, when we started talking a little bit about the college, the history, what Mercy College is, I think it's very important to know your institution. We've talked about the program, what it does, the uniqueness of our curriculum that's focused on healthcare education. Again, I haven't found another one in the country that does that, another program in the country in healthcare administration that focuses with our professional curriculum like that. And then we've talked about online learning and kind of the nitty gritties of how that works, and those pieces there. So those are some of the basics of the programs. Now, what are your next steps for the healthcare administration program? Well, because you've attended tonight and you've watched that, you're going to be provided a coupon code that will allow you to apply to the program at no charge. Now, normally our application fee is $25, so this will allow you to do that without the $25 fee. Now, I encourage students to apply. If you have an interest, if this program aligns with your goals, I encourage you to apply because you have the ability to not get charged the $25. Let's say this is not the right time for you. We're not going to come and hunt you down and drag you to class, so don't worry about it. Or you can always apply and then you can defer your enrollment up to a year. So you could roll that over to our next program start. Know that we have programs we have our healthcare administration program starts every semester. So really, you don't have long to wait before the next one starts again. And we want your onboarding to be very relaxed. We don't want you rushing. Some students do well, last minute, but that's really up to you. Again, if you have to pass, if the timing isn't right and you want to go to the next one, that's up to you as well. Let's talk about timing real quickly here before I mention that. Usually with our students, I talked about the demographic, and they the demographic of the program are these very busy individuals with a lot on their plate. And what often happens is issues with life happen. Something happens. So usually, sometimes it's a joyous occasion, a baby being born, maybe a new job, building a new house or buying a new house. Sometimes it's the not good stuff, a divorce or whatnot. But you have the ability to take a semester off if you need to. Usually we have a baby being born every semester in the program. I don't think we've had one so far yet, but I think someone's getting ready to have their baby. But it's a very common occurrence. And usually when I talk to students, that a baby is, for example, I'll pick on that one, is coming into their life, that maybe you take that semester off. Now, what have I been saying throughout this entire thing? There's no magic I can sprinkle on top of it. There's no magic bullets or magic answer. If you're taking a semester off, that's obviously going to delay your graduation. But I tell students this all the time. Don't worry about it. This is really a marathon. And I know it's cliched. It's not a sprint. I actually worry about the sprinters. You got to have that balance. You got to have that work-life family balance. So it really is a marathon. Kind of think of it like a slow burn. You're going to be challenged. I don't want you to burn up. You got to pace yourself throughout this. And sometimes, especially with these major, life events, you need to take a step back. That's fine. Take off a semester and then come right back in and finish up that degree. So know that you can do that with the program. And before you know it, like we're going to be having in just a couple of weeks here, our graduation, you're going to be walking across that stage and getting your diploma. Just be persistent and consistent as you go through it. And again, you'll be done before you know it. All right, so there you go. A little bit about the program. I've told you about the next steps. One, consider applying because it's free for you to do that. Another thing to consider is check with your human resource department. If you are lucky enough to work for an employer that offers tuition reimbursement, check out what that policy is. Each employer is a little different, but in my experience in dealing with students and talking to them about their experience, is that they all have rules, and you got to make sure you follow all those rules. They might need a pre-approval for the program. I will say this, that since all of you work in healthcare, I have never had any student who's been denied because the program did not align with their job responsibilities. An employer, if they're going to be paying a significant portion of the tuition, they want to make sure that the program aligns with what they want for you as an employee and what they need as an organization. Healthcare administration works great in that. So, and remember you got that regional accreditation in there too. So employers love that level of quality in a program. So that's never been a problem. But make sure that you do check with that and you get all of that worked out with your HR before the start of the program, because they may have some kind of a pre-approval process that's in there. So take a look at that. Also, another thing to consider is checking with financial aid. Now, as you apply to the program, your admissions officer, they can facilitate that introduction to our financial aid department. You can also find that information on our website. Now, why is financial aid important? Well, obviously your tuition investment is a lot of money, and how you're going to finance that investment. Some students are getting it funded through tuition reimbursement. Some it's a combination of out-of-pocket and tuition reimbursement, or a combination of financial aid reimbursement, or they're just paying out of pocket. I mean, it's all over the all over the spectrum. What's nice about financial aid is just having that lined up. Should you need those options, doesn't mean that you're obligated to get those options. There's something called a FAFSA. If you haven't been to school for a few years, that might be a new term for you. If you've been going to school for the past 15 years, you know exactly what that is. It's basically a governmental form that gets you pre-qualified for certain, student loans, grants, etc. Doesn't commit you to any of that, but you get an award letter based on the information that you provide in your FAFSA. Now, I'll put one little ad out for the FAFSA. We had a student. She said, "There's no way, Chris. I'm not gonna. I make too much money. There's no way." And she told me her salary, and I'm like, "Yeah, you make good money. You make some pretty good money." Uh, but she filled it out, and because various external factors, head of household, and the number of children that she had currently in school and going in higher education, she actually qualified for grants, free money. Okay, which when you count everything that was on her plate, it was definitely something that helped her with that, and she was so appreciative of that. So fill it out. You never know. You never know what potentially you can qualify for, and just even if it's student loans down the road, you got that box checked if you need it. The student loan thing has already been taken care of if you need to have to go that route. So. All right, so there's some food for thoughts to think about as you go through the next week or so in applying for the program and kind of getting those things squared away. One of the things you'll also get that will help you roadmap your process here at the college, after you have applied and you've been accepted to the program, I'm going to send you a new student packet. In that new student packet, you are going to receive 2 plans of study. It's your roadmap. It's taking all that credit that I talked about from those transcripts, and everybody's unique because everybody's transcript is different, and the credits that we are able to extract are a little bit different for each student. So everybody's roadmap is a little bit different. So you're going to get your 2 plans of study, your roadmap. One will be part-time and the other one will be full-time. So I always like giving both. Just let students see those 2 plans. Most students I recommend start part-time. Get used to being back to school, get acclimated to the process, and then ramp up to full-time. There are some students who start off full-time. Those students usually have been out of school for a very short period, or maybe don't have the kind of demands that some of us have with maybe family life and maybe some work commitments. So their lives are a little bit positioned better where they can they can devote a little bit more time to a full-time plan of study. But I usually recommend starting off part-time, getting successful, getting those first A's, feeling what it's like to take courses online, and then you can ramp it up if you wish. But that'll be located in your new student packet along with a checklist that's going to remind you of a lot of these things I've just said, such as the FAFSA and the tuition reimbursement through employers and all of that. But again, maybe to something to start thinking about as you prepare to enter the program, if this program is the one for you. All right. Well, I want to thank you for your time tonight. I know I've talked a little bit longer than I normally do, but you've been a great group, great questions we had at the very beginning. I truly appreciate that. If you have any more questions, feel free to contact me. You have my contact information. You can also contact our admissions office at any time, and they'll be happy to answer your questions. All right. Again, thank you so much for spending the time here tonight learning about the program, and I wish you the best of luck in all of your endeavors.